14bucks.com here. So Bank of America to cut overdraft fees from $35 to now only $10. So Bank of America, the second largest US bank, is reducing overdraft fees from $35 to $10 starting in May, the bank said in a news release on Tuesday. The bank will also stop charging insufficient funds fees starting in February, it said. The move comes amid growing regulatory and congressional scrutiny of such fees. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB, said last month that it is looking at such fees, which it estimates netted banks $69 billion in the third quarter of 2021, and will issue new guidance aimed at curbing banks' reliance on them. So some banks appear to be trying to get ahead of any regulatory intervention. Late last year, Capital One Financial said it would stop charging accounts for not having sufficient funds to cover drafts, and the largest U.S. bank, J.P. Morgan Chase, said it would give customers more leeway before charging fees. JPM, led by CEO Jamie Dimon, said it would give customers a full day to bring overdrawn accounts up to zero and would allow customers to tap into funds from direct paycheck deposits up to 2 days early before charging them fees. And in comparison, Bank of America will reduce overdraft fees to $10 and it is eliminating the transfer fee customers were charged for using the bank's overdraft protection service. The bank said these steps and others it took previously will cut the revenues the bank earns from overdraft fees by 97% since 2009. We remain committed to taking actions that will further bring down overdraft fees in the future and continue to empower clients to drive positive changes to behavior pertaining to overdraft, Holly O'Neill, president of retail banking at Bank of America, said in the news release. Now, here's the thing. If you are in a situation where this is even possible to even happen to you, you have bigger issues than an overdraft fee situation, right? Like if you're living paycheck to paycheck, so like thinly on the margin, right? Of like basically never having any money to the point where you are getting constant overdraft fees, you really need to take a breather and actually look at what you're spending your money on, because that is number one a very scary situation, because in that type of situation you pretty much cannot afford any emergency to ever come around, right? I mean, if your car were to break down, you're basically screwed, right? If you got into a crazy like accident, you're basically screwed, right? If, potentially, God forbid, something happens to one of your family members and you like need to go see them and like go help them out and like maybe potentially like save their life by getting there soon enough, you might not even be able to do that, right? Like it gets into like a really dark and sad situation if you're consistently getting hit with overdraft fees. Because at that point, it's not just on the bank, it's also on the individual, right? Now, I understand in those small circumstances where you're getting paid and then basically well, here's the thing that people don't really know. Banks will sometimes purposely reorganize your charges to try to make you overdraft, right? So I want to like say that like some banks will literally try to screw you over by changing the timing of when they process your charges, right? So for example, you could have like $100 in your account, right? And you know that you're going to get paid in like exactly 7 days, right? So you end up, you know, spending the $100 because you know you're going to end up getting paid within 7 days, right? But they might hold off on actually processing that charge till like 10 days, meaning between that 7 and 10 day period, right? Actually, no, I should like say that, right? Because basically, like the way that they do it, right? Because I completely screwed that one up, is that basically they will potentially hold off on like charging you timely, right? Causing you to have more money than you think inside your account because it hasn't been processed. So you think that you're okay with spending this amount of money when you really can't because you just look at your account balance, right? So you might have spent money by going out because you thought that you had $100, but in reality, the charges that you put onto your bank account didn't actually get processed the night before, right? Like for example, you might have went to the movies the night before, that didn't get charged like processed the next day. It might have been processed. Might not even get processed till like maybe like a week from now, depending on how long it takes them to actually do it. So you could end up spending more money from your bank account without actually realizing like wait a minute, you don't actually have the amount of money that you think, right? Because if you've ever, for example, filled up your gas tank, right? Have you ever seen like nearby, like on a sign that says like, hey, your bank might, hold like $200, $300, right? For like almost like security reasons or whatever, right? To make sure that there's sufficient funds to actually pay for this gas, right? Basically locking up money, right? Well, banks will pretty much do like really sketchy things where they will like kind of like almost be very lazy in their processing to make sure everything's going on, but also like if they say like, hey, wait a minute, if we hold off on like this process, like on this processing charge and processing this other charge, this individual is actually going to get overdrafted twice because they don't actually realize that they don't have any money, right? And so you got to be like really careful with that. So you need to like prevent this from even being a possibility that a bank is literally going to screw you over like this is by managing your money in a way and being careful of what you spend so that you're not living paycheck to paycheck to the extent that you literally got like no money in your account. Like you never ever want that to be a possibility, and it is a possibility for most people. So be very careful about that. Make sure to get out of debt so you have immense amount of cash flow so that this is never an issue.